This is my out of the home theater review for Avatar Fire and Ash in 3D. So I've already reviewed this movie. I reviewed the 4K digital version a couple weeks ago. I'll post a link in the description if you want to check that out. So basically what I wanted to do in this video is talk about the 3D experience versus the 4K version, and then kind of like, you know, maybe compare a little bit to see if maybe you don't know which one to buy. You know, if you still have a 3D capable projector and you're trying to decide if you want to buy both or just one or the other. So yeah, I'm not really going to talk about the audio too much because the audio is a downgrade on the 3D version. So, you know, the 3D is 1080p 3D, and then the audio is like DTS HD master audio. So there's really no point in talking about the audio. I may cover it just a little bit, but I do want to talk about the comparisons. So for the 4K version, which is going to be, you know, your IMAX and HDR or Dolby Vision, depending on if you have a Dolby Vision display and you're watching this on a, you know, Blu Ray disc or something, or a Kaleidescape that supports Dolby Vision. So I watched that one on my Epson QB1000 with my madVR. And yeah, like I said in the 4K review, it looks great. It looks like an Avatar movie. It looks beautiful. You know, it's lots of vibrant colors. HDR looks really good. You know, I don't think that this movie is going to win, like, you know, cinematography of the year or anything like that. I mean, it's definitely probably going to win some awards for visuals just because of the technology that's involved and what James Cameron is able to achieve. But so far, this is a very gritty movie, and I don't think this movie was intended to be like the most beautiful cinematography. Like, obviously it's beautiful, and the world of Pandora, like, I'm not saying that, but you know, this is a very gritty movie. There's high stakes, you know, there's tons of fight scenes, there's aerial battles, you know, there's all kinds of tribes and everybody fighting each other. But yeah, as far as IMAX, you get the full IMAX scenes on this one, and it looks fantastic. Like I said, it's an Avatar movie. It's made to pull you in, and seeing this, you know, in the aspect ratio, which I did see this in the theaters. I believe I saw this twice, IMAX and IMAX 3D. Yeah, the experience at home is incredible. You know, watching this, the spectacle of Avatar, and you're in the biggest way possible. So from that aspect, you know, the 4K version, it's great. I love it. This won't be the last time I watch it. But everybody knows James Cameron is an avid 3D protector. Like, he loves 3D. He pushes 3D. He has literally, like, had his hands in advancing 3D technology, especially with these Avatar movies, because it requires it. You know, with The Way of Water, you know, he pioneered some new technology to be able to do 3D underwater, you know, stuff like that. So there's a big difference between watching a movie in 3D that's shot in camera, that was shot in 3D, versus a movie that is converted after the fact, you know, post-conversion. And there's a lot of good ones out there. I think probably the best one that everyone would agree on is Pacific Rim. The 3D on that looks absolutely amazing. If you didn't know that it was converted post the movie, you would have no idea that it wasn't shot natively. But James Cameron is just a genius when it comes to 3D and the way that he uses 3D. So for 3D, I'm watching this on my Xgimi Titan Noir Max, and I'll leave a link in the review for that one as well if you want to check that out, because if you want to watch Avatar Fire and Ash in the best way possible, you have to watch it in 3D, because again, that's how this movie was shot. And I actually forgot I still have my glasses on. But yeah, so Xgimi Titan Noir Max, 7,000 lumens versus my QB1000 that has 3,300 lumens. Now, the QB1000 is no joke. I love that projector. I think it's probably the best bang for your buck. And then I have it paired with my you know, my madVR Envy Core. But one of the issues with 3D, a couple issues with 3D is there's always some type of crosstalk, and then it's always too dim, because when you put the glasses on, it's going to make it even dimmer. But when you have a projector like the Titan Noir Max that has 7,000 lumens, and as I said in the review for that projector, there is zero crosstalk. Now, I guess, you know, the limiting factor could be the 3D conversion or the way that the 3D was shot, but I've watched a couple movies already. Actually, I want to say 3. Zero crosstalk. So Xgimi really put in the effort to make a good 3D experience with this, and take advantage of the available brightness. And the Titan Noir Max, there's no Google TV on it, there's no apps. So I think Xgimi made a decision to let's pour all of our resources into making a good projector. We don't have to worry about licensing and all this stuff with Google. They made an incredible product. So watching Avatar 3D, no crosstalk, plenty of brightness, this is probably one of the best 3D experiences that I've seen at home. And it's been quite a few years since I've had a 3D projector. So I haven't watched any 3D movies in years. And this was just pulling me in, man. Like, the way that James Cameron uses depth in this movie, and this isn't like some gimmicky where like, oh, stuff is popping out of the screen. I don't remember seeing anything like that, but just the way that he utilizes the 3D where there's depth, it's just incredible. And he's a master at getting you enveloped and engrossed in the film where it feels like you're actually there. So, you know, in the aerial battle, the first aerial battle that they have when they're on those ships with the Wind Traders, and I think it's Varuk, I can't remember her name, but the leader of the Ash people, they come flying over the mountain, and it's just a grand spectacle with depth and immersion, man. You know, there's arrows flying everywhere. You know, whenever there's an avatar flying above someone else, you know, you get that depth. And then there's a couple scenes where they're on that ship, and you get like this long shot where there's people in the forefront, there's people in the middle, there's people in the back. They're all doing stuff. They're running around. And for me, it's the 3D is so good. It almost takes me out of the movie to where I'm just like focusing on, I'm not even paying attention to the movie at some point, because I'm just looking at like, wow, this is, obviously I've already seen the movie, so it's not like I'm missing out on anything, but it's so good that it can pull you out of the movie just because you're just marveling at how incredible the 3D experience is. And again, you have no issues with light because, you know, obviously you have to have a projector that has high brightness, and this thing, the Titan Noir, has 7,000 lumens, so that's not an issue there. And then no crosstalk, so I mean, just perfect 3D. So if you're planning on buying a Titan Noir Max, or you've pre-ordered, man, this is going to be an incredible 3D experience, because again, James Cameron is the pioneer. He's the top dog when it comes to 3D. As far as native 3D. In comparison, so 4K versus the 3D version. So as I stated earlier, the 3D version has inferior audio, DTS HD Master audio. So it's still lossless, but you're not going to get the Dolby Atmos, that, you know, extended immersion that adds to the movie. So that's a bummer. I wish they would have done that. I don't know if it's a limitation of the disc. I feel like it's not. Also to note, before I forget, Avatar 3D is on 2 discs. So there's a disc 1 and a disc 2. So that sucks. I was not expecting that. So that's going to cause some issues. If you're somebody that likes to rip your 3D movies, you're going to have to, you're going to have to rip it twice, basically, because there's a disc 1 and a disc 2. So I'm just using my Blu Ray player right now, you know, my Oppo 203. But yeah, so 4K version, you get the IMAX scenes throughout the whole movie, but then you have the Dolby Atmos. So obviously the Dolby Atmos version is going to be it's going to sound a lot better, you know, versus the 3D version, and still lossless, but you lose a lot of immersion. And I will say this about the audio. What I did notice is, like, even the DTS HD Master audio still sounds great, like upmixed. I was getting quite a lot of immersion. Doesn't sound quite the same. One thing I did notice though was the bass. To me, you know, and I listened at the same level that I did, you know, on both movies. To me, the bass is more potent on the 4K version versus that. That was one thing I noticed immediately. So which one should you buy? Obviously, if you don't have a 3D projector, then the choice is easy. You're going to buy the 4K version. You're still going to get that immersion, the visual immersion with the IMAX scenes, and then you get the Dolby Atmos audio. But if you do have a 3D capable projector, which one should you buy? I'm going to go with the 3D all day, despite that, because I'm an audio guy. I think, and I've said this before, if I had a choice, if I could only have the best audio or the best video, so basically, if I was stuck with 1080p for the rest of my life, but I had, you know, incredible audio, I would choose that. So in this case, because the 3D is so awesome, and this is how it was made to be seen, 3D IMAX, I'm going 3D all the way. Now, obviously I have both. I have the 4K version, and then I pre-ordered the 3D. But it's up to you. If you're somebody that prioritizes audio, then you're probably going to go with the 4K version, because you're going to get that Dolby Atmos, you're going to get that, you know, audio immersion. But if you can, and obviously you can still buy both, you know, if you're somebody that wants to buy both. I typically don't double dip, but with the Avatar movie, I was like, nah, I got to have both. You know, the 3D wasn't available anyway. So, you know, I got the 4K version on the Kaleidescape, and then I pre-ordered it because I wanted the 3D, because I knew this was going to be stellar. But yeah, if you're somebody that doesn't mind double dipping, get both, or just stick with, you know, the format, the way the director's intent, the way that this movie was meant to be seen in 3D IMAX. You will not be disappointed. And if you've got a pretty good, you know, capable 3D projector with some high brightness, I mean, you can probably see it in the video when I switch back and forth how much brighter it is. And obviously it doesn't look the same as it does of me seeing it in person, you know, with camera settings and then being uploaded to YouTube and then being compressed. It might look a little bit like blown out just because of, you know, how YouTube does things and the camera settings versus the other one, you know, the 4K version. But man, I'm definitely going to be watching this multiple times in 3D. I need to get some more glasses so I can get some friends over here and we can all watch this, because this is a spectacle, man. This is incredible. I'm so glad that I have a 3D projector again, and I'm going to go back and start watching all my 3D movies. But this is cream of the crop. Now, I saw all 3 Avatar movies in the theater in 3D. However, the only one that I don't have on 3D is Avatar: Way of Water, because at the time I didn't have a 3D projector. So I can't make any comparisons of how that 3D looks versus this one. But I believe Shane Lee, you know, reviewed it on his channel, and he said that Fire and Ash looks just as good, if not better, than Way of Water. So, but I want to know your thoughts. Have you seen both? Do you own both? And if you do, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the 4K version with the Dolby Atmos audio, or do you prefer to watch this movie in the way that it was intended, 3D IMAX with some inferior audio? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.